So welcome back, everybody. In this episode, well, we're going to be taking advantage of this tank right here. I've actually pulled this out and I've been saving it. I bought it like a year and a half ago. I knew I was going to have some major upcoming projects in need of tanks like this in the future. And well, we have one coming up. But in the meantime, I've got to cut the ends of these tanks off. I buy these tanks because I used to build and sell some fire pits for some side income. And I still plan to do that again in the future. So today, that's what we're gonna do. I need this big center section of this tank for the next video that's coming in this big project series. You're not gonna wanna miss that one. But today, since we're cutting the ends off, let's go ahead and clean them up, get some feet welded on them, and turn them into some massive fire pits. So let's get these cut off and cleaned up. I need a little side income for some of these projects that we're doing right now on the channel. So these are gonna be for sale, by the way, if you're interested. I'm just gonna have to do first come, first serve right here. Emails down in the description if you like what you see. So even though this tank has been sitting on the property for probably a year and a half, it's been condemned. All the plugs have been removed out of the top. Well, some of the plugs have. And there was also a plug on the bottom. I decided to flip this over, use one of these fittings to plug the bottom. And what I normally do with propane tanks, I fill them completely with water. This is gonna take an extremely long time filling a 1,000-gallon tank, but it's worth it in my mind, because as the water fills up in here, any potential trapped propane, even though I don't believe there's any in here, well, it all gets pushed out. The gas, the air, the combustible atmosphere is pushed completely out. Then it is safe to cut on these. I'll flip it over, drain it out, and this keeps the explosion hazard down. Never ever cut on a propane tank without purging it one way or another. All right, so that technique worked decent for cutting. You can see here's the big piece I just cut the ends off of. What I did is I made a nice score line all the way around with my cutoff grinder. And then that score line gave me some nice clean metal and a somewhat clean edge to go ahead and kind of run my plasma jet through. But you see, I still wind up with a lot of areas that are not very smooth. Plasma cutter is definitely not the smoothest cutter in the world. I got to grind a lot of that. Typically in the past, I would cut through these just with that angle grinder. It takes forever, but it leaves you a nice polished, clean edge. So I'm still deciding, do I want to continue to do this score and then plasma cut route, which, man, leaves me with a lot of cleanup work after the fact, or go back to just cutting straight through with the grinder. All right, so take a look at this. It makes a mess, but see how easy the paint comes off now. We just got these really, really hot last night. Got it basically to where they were cherry red. That burns the paint off. Of course, we stood upwind and didn't breathe none of this mess in. I have found this is one of the best ways to remove this very thick, like industrial paint off of these. It's so hard to get off. Then I'll just go over the last of this with a wire wheel. Of course, I got to clean all this up. And I did it in this area because we're about to rock this area in anyways, so it doesn't really matter. And I'm making a little bit of a mess, but it'll all get cleaned up. This sure beats going over this entire thing with a wire wheel or disc, which doesn't do nothing but just put a bunch of paint chips in the air. Even with a good respirator, I still feel like that stuff is getting in my lungs. So I found this is the best technique to get this really thick paint off. All right, well, as you can see, these things are massive. It looks like I built 2 wood-fired hot tubs right here. So it is hard to understand the size of these. They're 41 inches across. You just don't find fire pits like this anywhere unless you find another shop or somebody actually building them out of propane tanks. And as you can see, this is 3/8 inch thick steel, all the way through. This is truly a lifetime fire pit. You don't rust these out unless you just absolutely neglect them somehow. So I've already got over a day of work in these, and I'm actually gonna have to burn them again. So this is what I'm trying to get to right here, raw steel, but as you can see, we still got some really tough paint stuck on them. So what we're gonna have to do is burn these again tonight or tomorrow, and then I'll take my propane torch on the outside while we got a coal bed going on the inside, and this last little bit of paint will remove itself, and I may wire wheel it one more time. Then we're getting it down to raw steel just how I want it. So here's my old pit that I built years and years ago. And as you can see, this is kind of the look you're going for. It doesn't even really put rust on you. It just gets a rusty patina, kind of just hardens up, doesn't really flake off on the outside. And that's ultimately what you get to once you get all the paint burn off and ground off of them, and then just let it kind of naturally rust in. Now, I've had people ask me, why don't you paint these? Literally last night, whenever I was burning these pits, they were glowing red, like cherry red in the bottom, even though that's 3/8 inch thick steel. You can get a really hot fire going to these. Well, I just don't think there's any high temp paint that's gonna hold up to that. So I find it best to let it naturally patina up, and well, rust itself doesn't actually burn off, so you keep a nice consistent color on them. So on the inside too, people often ask me, do you do drain holes? Yes, you have to do a drain hole in the bottom right there. You don't want these to puddle up and hold water in them. So one good hole is usually enough there. So as far as the feet go, some nice thick square tubing with 3/16 inch feet plates on the bottom. And I always do a 3-leg design. I've did 4 legs design in the past, but you gotta be on absolutely perfect ground, and you almost never are. So if you do a 3-leg design, it will always be touching on all 3 legs, and it will always balance itself. All right, so other than maybe one more burn in and getting the last little bit of the paint off, that's just part of the process. These are ready to go. Now again, I cut these ends off because I was already planning on making pits anyways for selling. That's something I've done in the past for some side income, but I really need that main section of tank. You're not gonna wanna miss the next video. We've got a massive build coming. Now these are for sale. It's gonna be first come, first serve. I had a few people reach out to me a couple years ago via email. That's the way you need to contact me. If you're one of those people, I'm gonna give this 2 to 3 days after the video post. Respond to me through that email. Some of y'all were probably looking for smaller pits than this, but you've been on the waiting list the longest. I'm going to give you a couple day opportunity to reach out to me. Anybody else that's interested in these, like I said, you kind of need to be local to North Florida to be able to pick it up. I'm just too busy to do any traveling, and we'll discuss the price and all that. Email is down in the video description if you want to get a hold of me on that and get on the waiting list. And we'll just start contacting people in order of first come, first serve. And when the 2 are sold, they're sold. I will be making some more of these and other different types of models in the future, but that's not gonna be for a while. We've got way too many other projects going on right now. All right, this was fun. I love building stuff like this, but I needed to get these out of the way so we can get started on this massive project. Stay tuned for a really cool build coming up. Thanks for watching.